Hello, BookTube. This is Alan. I got a Friday reads for you today. First one I finished was my book that my challenge for myself with the read a book that was originally published in the decade that it came out, and so I was on the 1910s, and this was Edith Fromm by Edith Wharton. I finished this book 2 days ago. It's very short, very it only has about 180 pages, I believe. Yeah, this book originally came out in 1911. Yeah, it's about 181 pages. And this is a very good book. I really enjoyed it. It's a story about the main character, Edith Fromm, who lives in Starkville, Massachusetts. And it's about a 20-something-year-old and dreams about being an engineer and moving out of Starkville and moving to the big city. But unfortunately, his father dies, and then his mother becomes ill, so he has to stay at the farm in Starkville. And then his mother dies, and so he marries Ethan, marries his caregiver, Xena. Now, Xena is a hypochondriac, and the marriage doesn't go very well. And then all of a sudden, Xena's cousin, Maddie, appears on the scene. And there's an outsider that comes into the scene who's not named and is an engineer and notices everything that's going on. The relationship, the terrible relationship between Ethan and Xena, and the relationship between Ethan and Maddie. And so so it is a dark, and the structure and the irony that Edith Wharton puts into her story and the use of language makes the story unique, because it has you can see how the characters are all trapped in a social, economic, and familiar circumstances, and it takes place during the winter, so you have that dark, brooding type language that goes throughout the story. So it's a very good story. It's excellent. I highly recommend it. It's Ethan Frome by Edith Wharton. I've read some of her Edith Wharton's short stories and called New York stories, and then she takes uh, picks apart the social establishment in New York, the classes. The next one I haven't finished because it's a read along. Excuse me. It's a read along of Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. The read along is on through Instagram. Excuse me, and by a guy named Bookstagram Steve, who lives up in Boston area. So this has been very good so far. It's about on part 2 of the book. So I should be finished with this one by the end of the month, hopefully. So it's a pretty long book. It's about 528 pages, and does have an afterword in the book. Next one thing I want to show you is a magazine called Writer's Digest, and was started to get this when I was taking writing courses at SMU, and this is a very good magazine. And I let my subscription lapse, and then back in November I started getting it again. Somebody must have sent me a gift subscription or something, but it's a very good magazine if you want to be a writer, because it says save money on every writing tool, the do's and don'ts of writing a prologue, nonfiction writing tips. Jonathan Mayberry, the the horror writer, the case for switching genres. And each issue has several articles in here about how to write. Here's a writer's field guide to editors. You have a, let's see, there's usually a introduction. There's usually on the front page a little profile picture with with an author. And I'm not sure who this one is. Andrew, I might take the sticker off. Andrew Sean Green, who wrote the book called Less, getting lessons on rejection and revision from Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist Andrew Sean Green. So you have this one, Poetic Asides. There's a regular standard column from Robert Lee Brewer. He talks about different types of poetry and how in each column he'll break it down. Each column. You have this one called Meet the Agent. This is a regular feature in this magazine, Writer's Digest. This one is Eric Hahn, who head Water Literary Management, and he talks about different clients, what he's seeking, upcoming conferences, query pet peeves. Now this is very important because you have lines meant to sound personal but clearly intended for a different agent, lines recently completed or almost finished, or anything that suggests the work isn't done or hasn't been polished. That's some of his pet peeves. He doesn't like query letters. Writing tips, he says, be careful who gets to weigh in and critique your work. Don't rush, don't chase trends, and don't worry if it's too late. And they also asked favorites for this gentleman is like dead author Susan Sontag, living author Karen Russell. Has personal things like he loves to play tennis. Pitch tips, short, understanding, feels more effective than something overwritten. Don't get verbose on plot summary. Stick to keys. Use your character, what he wrote, and what stands in the way. There are other things like this one. It's called Breaking In, which has new authors and how they went about getting published. And they usually have about 3 here. So I'll just pick one here. Constance Sayers, who wrote the book called A Witch in Time. It's romantic historical fantasy, which came out this month. And she writes from Washington, D.C. She had been writing rural noir. She has short stories published. And a novel she's been struggling with for years. And she landed an agent, but the book failed to sell. And her agent had seen the early 50 pages of Witch in Time, which is this book here. And previous book took 8.5 years to write. So the agent entered. Her biggest surprise was that biggest thing you can do if you hit an obstacle with one book is to write another book, because it makes the first one less precious. And also didn't realize how the left and right brain the business is. You have to pivot between artistic and business sides. To do well, you cannot just focus on the artistic side. And what she did right was that she had demanding jobs. She would go home, write 1,000 words each night, or go to a class at Writer Center in Bethesda, Maryland, to keep moving forward and build a community. And what she had done different, she said in graduate school we spent a lot of time learning their craft of writing short stories. And she's not a short story writer. And the short story submission or rejection process prepared me for having a thick skin. So the class really didn't help her. And she had advice for writers: don't look at the first 50 pages until you finish the book. Often I see writers obsessed with their first 50 pages, not moving into the middle or the end of the book. The first 50 pages are important in pitching, but you don't know a book until you finish your first draft. Then the first 50 pages should be clear to you. And next up, she's working on a second novel, which will be come out next year. The other ones here are Raymond Fletcher, who wrote the book How Quickly She Disappears, which came out in January by Berkeley Books, and Sean Adams, who wrote the book The Heap, which came out as a literary science fiction, which came out by William Morrow, published in January. And the cover page, which is on here, says Chaos Issue, is art of breaking character. And no matter your genre, readers are drawn to the unexpected. Here's how to use out of character behavior to add layers and entry to your story. And this goes on about, stop when repetition begins, learning through first-hand research, take a break between writing and editing, read your manuscript to a teenager. And this is about frugal writer's guide to everything. This is about ones who want to promote your work, every cost adds up, and how to save money without cutting corners. And so this issue just keeps going on with basic tips, basic helps for writers. And then you have the cover story is Andrew Sean Greer. Andrew Sean Greer and his 3 books that he's written: Last, The Impossible Lives of Greta Wells, and and the Confessions of Max Tivoli. And it's a short interview with him. Excuse me. Where they ask him questions. And then they have this one, Funny You Should Ask. It's a regular column by Barbara Powell, who is a vice president of Irene Goodman Literary Agency. And someone would ask in questions like, I'm a best-selling author and I've been asked to teach a writing seminar at a conference. It's flattered and excited, but no one knows this except for the agent editor, and terrible with some aspects of grammar, especially homonyms and homophones. Should I be upfront about this? And so she answers this question. This one is called First Things First. You write an opening line to a story based on a photo prompt below, and this is this photo right here, and people have already submitted. One person said, Mom, I didn't ask you for a wanted poster, or asked if you want a pop tart from the toaster. Someone said, Grandma beamed with pride knowing mugshot would be on television at my first press conference as police chief. So it's a little interesting. And here's another one. A challenge. Write first line, one sentence only, to the story based on photo prompt below. So this is the photo prompt here. A guy with a TV set on his head. So you have a workbook at the end here. How to mine facts and promises with fully code. And you have a column on publishing insights, breaking into the secret genre of creative nonfiction. And you have some ads of different conferences that are going on throughout the United States, Canada, and Spain. And so that's the Writer's Digest. The next one I'm going to show you is what I received in the mail last night, and yesterday, and I got home last night and saw this, and I was excited about it because this is from, excuse me, Let me get back here. This is from the University of Chicago Press. I had ordered from their catalog back in November, December, when they had a big sale. This is history from Chicago. This is their latest issue. They first have the American history. You have works by Emmett Till, Money, Power, and People, The Daily Thomas Paine. You save like a couple of pennies on these. The World of Juliet Kinsey, The Atlas of Boston History. Price is like $32 for this one. New York Recentered. And you have, and it goes throughout American history. There's one, Man Without Maps, which is a gay males of the generation before Stonewall. This is a price of $22 for sale. Yes, I thought this one was really funny. Nixon at the Movies by Mark Finning. Book about belief. And this was only $18. The regular price for $22.50. So it just goes on like this. It's like you have something about the time capsules, Citizen Brown, the race, democracy, and inequality, St. Louis suburbs, the politics of pedants, America in the Age of Immaturity by Alan Wolfe. And you have Conspiracies of Conspiracies by Thomas Kona. And it just goes on like this. And you have Freedom of Speech, the Millennium One's Native Tongue, Citizenship, Contestant, and Conflict in America. This is this one right here. And a lot of other. And you have Chicago history. And you have British history. A section on British history. Let's see what we have here. A Windsor Castle, 1,000 Years at the Royal Palace, edited by Steve Brendel. This book will go for $116 on sale for regular price $145 with 600 color plates. And you have the European Illusion, which for Britain, France, Germany, and a long history of European integration, and regular price $40 on sale for $30.22. One on Greece, the Netherlands, European history. There's one on Gutenberg. This sounds really fascinating. There's a little biography of Gutenberg. It was the distributed by Haas Publishing. 56 color plates, one map, and the price is only $13.56. So it's on sale. And see how many pages it has. 212 pages about Gutenberg, which is pretty good. This is one on Prague, history of the Czech nation's lands. One on Russia, art, royalty, and the Romanovs. This is on regular price, $95, on sale for $76. Palestine, a 4,000 year history, and distributed by Zed Books. Price is only $28. Regular price $35. Armchair Traveler's History of Tokyo. This is a price of $18. And so you have economic history, power, economic history, history, and politics. And you have Hayek and Evidence of Evolution of Capitalism, Hayek versus Maynard Keynes, Feminism, Class and Over Commerce, The Human Condition, Gilded Youth, The Perfect Mess, Out of Stock, Ahab's Rolling Sea, about the natural history of Moby Dick. Sounds interesting. Now all these sound interesting. Here's one called Fat, a cultural history of the stuff of life. This one is goes for $25. And here's one on the mafia, to which by Roberto M. Donato, and this is goes for $12. And I read an article about about this book. Excuse me, about this book, and my New York review of books, and it's very good. It tells you how the mafia actually got started. It actually got started with three brothers having a secret society in, of all places, Portugal. They ran out of that country and went to Italy, and they added more to their the society, their secret society, and more rules, codes, and they actually went out. Each one went out their separate ways, and they started recruiting more people into their secret society. And that's how the mafia started. So it's a very good, yeah, here it is. It draws from a portrait of Sicilian American mafia evolution from land control in South Italy to big business in the United States. He observes how a mafia boss is similar to what many desire in the concept of American dream, but he was also everything they feared. So that's interesting. That would be an interesting read. So that's history from the University of Chicago Press. Thank you very, very much for watching, and y'all take care.